I'm going to show you the most boring places in Gorebox, starting from rank 5 all the way up to rank 1. And first off, we're starting with the Desert Bridge map. And this is one of those maps where there's so many buildings and their interiors that one could argue that there's a lot of so-called boring places in here. And the most boring place in this map, I'd argue, is behind this building right here. And what we've really got right here are these crates, a couple of plants, and a couple of doors. And the reason I call this place boring is because, I've explored a lot of these maps, a whole lot to search for Easter eggs and stuff in the past. And this is probably one of the least visited areas I've ever come to. And yet, somehow, just standing right here, I feel like with the objects placed around here, it just has somewhat of a personality. So right here, we've got an unopenable door. But if you go in here, you'll see that this is a little office area of sorts. And this door right here is blocked by some boxes. But that's just one door. What about this other door right here? It also happens to be blocked by a bunch of boxes. And this right here appears to be an ammunition store, I assume. And I just like to imagine the in-game lore of these sort of things. I mean, it's silly, but I could imagine a worker working here for till his lunch break. And then he'd want to go out right here past this door, for a cigarette break or something. Just chill behind this wall to avoid the sunlight. And another worker from the other office would also come, meet him here. They'd both probably stand there. One of them, his foot on the wall. They'd complain about their bosses and stuff like that. There's just no real reason for any players to come here. And that's why it's boring, and that's why it's kind of interesting as well. The Reminiscence map is a map which, once again, is kind of tiny. It's been explored well, I suppose, because of its small size. But there's still one little area which I consider to be a little bit unexplored and a little bit boring, I guess. And the area that I'm talking about is right here, behind the house in the Reminiscence map. Is it just me, or does no one ever really even visit this area? There's nothing really remarkable about this place. It's just kind of neglected to a certain extent. This back area just exists because there has to be a back area for this house. Unlike the side of this house where there's some picnic tables, all we've really got is this little banana plant right here. And besides this, it's just a boring and unremarkable place. All we could really do is just stand here and, sip on coffee in the morning while you look out at the great and vast ocean. Besides the large bridge, the tar, and the dirt roads, the sanctuary map doesn't have a whole lot of touch of human civilization. I assume when most players spawn into this map, they drive around or fly around this area. They probably explore the bridge, that huge cliff right there, or even the interior of the caves, which have their own little interesting nooks and crannies. But I'm sure that these have been explored a whole lot by Gorebox players like me. So what's really a boring place as such in this map? In my opinion, it's this little area right here. So right here is where you spawn, and you're facing this direction. And I don't think that most players actually spawn in and turn to their back right here. And right now I'm taking a walk in that direction. And I'm not no-clipping or anything. And I've managed to reach this little spot, this little corner. And interestingly enough, this little mountain right here can even be ascended. And besides that little area right here, I'm talking about the boringness of this whole area. How many players spawn into this map and come down here? How many players spawn into this map and actually bother looking at this little cliff right here and standing atop it and enjoying this little mediocre view? I don't think a whole lot of them do. They all want to go on that cliff right there. And I just love to take a short little hike right here in real life, set up a little mat, pull out some Pepsi, and just chill out here all alone. Then a short little hike away from that, there's this area right here, which is a little more interesting because it's got a couple of trees actually. But it's still pretty darn boring. I'd love to just chill out here sometime and just watch everyone else just drive around the sanctuary map and stuff. I'd probably go ahead and say that this is actually one of the least visited areas in the entirety of Gorebox. Now here I am in Pit Valley, And Pit Valley, I gotta say, is a pretty darn small map, and you don't really have to explore it a whole lot to, basically see everything that's already in here. But there's one place in this map that I find to be particularly boring. So if you clip past this barricade right here, you go into this area where the map isn't really developed anymore because you aren't really supposed to be here. And I'm not actually talking about this specific area itself. I'm talking about this area on the other end of the map instead. Now this place also has an invisible wall which won't really allow you to walk past here. But if you simply enable no clip, take a couple steps ahead and then drop yourself down again, we can now walk around this area. And we can even go back for some reason, but yeah, the invisible wall only works one way, I suppose. What sort of evil witchery is this, G-Dev? So yeah, I'm gonna walk down right here, and this is definitely one of the most boring places in Gorebox. Like, obviously you're not supposed to come here, you're not supposed to see this, and it's just a bunch of hills surrounding this little road right here that leads straight into this rock. I feel like this is the sort of area where Wile E. Coyote will paint a little tunnel and the Roadrunner will go running straight into it. I guess this is the point of view of the Roadrunner. He just uses no clip, guys. He's a hacker. But when Wile E. Coyote tries to go into that tunnel himself, he's gonna accidentally injure himself or something. Yeah, I don't even know how many of you guys are old enough to know about the Roadrunner. Now, of course, besides a few trees, what we've got right here is actually the grave of the Tumble Trooper. Rest in power, my friend. Press F to pay your respects. If this place existed in real life, I don't know about you guys, but I'd probably come here a lot. Maybe I'd set up a little chair right here, enjoy some coffee, and just stare at this hill right here. I don't know, it's got a kind of weirdly cozy feeling, what can I say? And there was no real reason for the developers to actually enclose this area. Like, you can't see it from around there, so it was kind of cool that they did this. The only little flaw that we've got right here is that there's a little hole down here which leads you into the void, it would seem. Goodbye, cruel world! Now I'm at the Afterglow map, and once again, it's very tiny. There aren't a whole lot of unexplored areas right here, or any for that matter. I suppose there was one boring area right under this bridge. But if you walk down here, you can already see that there's been graffiti over here. So that means that there are some people who come out here and hang out sometimes. In terms of Gorebox lore at least, the facility map is an area where I think most of the interiors have been entirely explored. Like, if you've ever played on this map, you've probably spent a lot of time walking around the corridors trying to find your way to certain areas, like this chamber right here for example. So in my opinion, the most boring areas in this map are the ones on the outside. And the first boring area in this map is the entrance right here. Like, everyone who spawns in just enters the map. But how many people actually bother coming out here? Did you even know that there's a ladder to ascend and enter the map from up here? There's also a couple of picnic tables and some lights. Besides just being boring, with all of this red fog, I gotta say that this is not a very aesthetically pleasing place to be. Like, if this place existed in real life, I would feel very uncomfortable to just sit here alone or even with other people. Another boring yet very interesting place for me in this map is this area right here. It's probably one of my favorite places in the entirety of Gorebox. I really like the lighting. I like that there's a bunch of benches here. And I even like this new little lens flare that we've got. It just feels a lot more comfortable compared to that picnic area that I just showed you guys. Like, I wouldn't mind sitting here and chilling while I was on break from doing lab test or something inside the facility. This just seems like a nice place to be. Another boring but aesthetically pleasing place to me is this little area right here. If you ever played a facility map, I doubt you even pass by here a whole lot, because all this area leads to is this little corridor right here, which in itself is a bit of a boring place, although we've got Gabocto hanging around in the darkness. But this little transition area over here, there's just something about it, I can't really explain it. but it just feels like a very unvisited place in this game. There's nothing special about it, but yet for some reason I just feel like setting down a chair and sitting here. There's something oddly pleasing about it. And I could imagine that a random scientist would rarely pass by here and they'd look at me and they just get scared, like, oh, what are you doing here? I didn't expect anyone to be here. So yeah, one of the more boring places in Gorebox, I suppose. Click here to watch me rank the Gorebox maps based on how livable they would be in real life. So I've been Jazif, you've been my audience, thank you for watching, and goodbye.